Good morning, Saints fans and Who Dats. I'm Coyote Mosley here with the Bayou Blitz and the Crescent City Connection. We have a special guest in store for you today. We have none other than Mr. Jacob Rothman. He is the co-founder of Perch. And I know a lot of you guys are wondering, Kyle, what is Perch? Well, we're going to let Jacob tell you. How you doing, Jacob?
I'm doing great. How are you? I appreciate having me on.
Hey, no problem. Look, I know the New Orleans Saints have recently brought you in, and you guys are a part of a new technology. It's like a 3D camera that's going to help the players train to be smarter about how they do their workouts to reduce risk of injury. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. Yeah, happy to go into as much detail as you want. But yeah, high level, it's basically a camera system you attach to a weight rack that gives you more detailed feedback about how you're actually lifting in the weight room, like decreasing chance of injury, optimizing performance, all that good stuff.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. How did you guys get started? I mean, what brought this about to be able to develop this new technology?
Yeah, it's a really, really good question. So it's a combination of different things, but myself and a couple of buddies, we founded it when we were still in school. We went to MIT. We were varsity athletes there. And while we were there, we kind of noticed that there was a trend in fitness technology, and a lot of it, even in like elite sports, a lot of that was focused on aerobic activity. So in elite sports in particular, it's what are athletes doing on the field? What are they doing in practice? So like typically what's used is like a GPS system. So you can get top speeds, how many yards an athlete ran in practice, what they're doing in games. But when you step into the weight room, there is no similar experience. All that information is being missed. So when an athlete or a coach prescribes, I want you to lift this amount of weight, you have no idea if that's the correct weight. It's too much, too little. So what we sought to do was go in and provide more data, more feedback, enable a coach to really, get more detailed in terms of the prescription in the weight room.
Interesting. So basically, you guys saw a need that, hey, what's going on in the weight room is kind of different than what you see out on the field, because when you talk about GPS and I think next gen stats, those guys use that type of technology to be able to gauge player performance on the football field. But the weight room is a different issue, and the NFL has been trying to reduce the number of injuries that players do have. So I know you just came from New Orleans. You spent time with the strength and conditioning coaches, Mr. Dalrymple, right? Yep. And you also have helped to be able to install and train the other coaches on the methods that you guys are using. So what can a Saints player expect? New technology, how would he gauge his performance from last season to this season? Is it like overnight, or what do you see?
Yeah, so there's a lot of really good uses for the technology, and I was just meeting with the Saints, so I can give you some specific examples. But typically, like in an NFL, in a typical weight room setting, what you're going to be doing is essentially measuring like a 1 rep max, right? So exactly how heavy can an athlete, or what's the maximum amount of weight that they can lift, and then you're going to program off a percentage of that. So for instance, you might say, I want you to lift do a set of 3 reps at 85% of your max. But in an NFL setting, when these guys are such high value, you're never going to really measure a 1 rep max. It's very difficult to do that. So then basically all the prescription, all of the programming becomes guesswork from day to day. And it becomes really hard to program for these guys, make sure that they're actually getting better during the course of the season, not overtraining, not fatiguing. So really what our technology allows you to do is, one, you can predict an athlete's 1 rep max. So just during a normal workout, an athlete we'll measure things like velocity or power output. And then using that data, we can actually estimate an athlete's 1 rep max. And then the prescription can become more and more precise during a season. So that's really one way. So it allows you to enhance programming with a limit, or limiting the risk associated with measuring maxes. And then additionally, it can create a ton more intent. So athletes a lot of times will go in and they'll lift and they'll feel like the weight is too heavy, right? So they'll either stay at a certain weight or they'll drop weight. And a coach, they want to listen to the athletes. But now that you have objective data, right, after every rep, you'll see a velocity number. How fast did you lift the weight? Whether that's like 0.8 meters per second or 0.6. And you can now, tell the athlete, I want you to lift above 0.5 meters per second. And you know that weight is not too heavy if they're able to achieve above a certain speed, right? The heavier the weight, the slower they're going to move it. So they're able to keep these guys safe while allowing them to lift as much weight as possible. And then finally, it becomes a competition for these guys too. They compete. They want to see who can lift the most weight above a certain speed.
Right.
Now you have this objective data for athletes to compete. They're super, super competitive. And that is, when it comes to technology like ours, an undervalued part of it, but super, super important for coaches and athletes, especially in the NFL. The coach often they want to try to get as much buy-in from these athletes as possible, and showing objective data and creating competition is a great way of doing that.